Making Moves with Mac, presented by FanDuel.
Action.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Making Moves with Mac, presented by FanDuel. Today is Friday, September 5th, and football is back in our lives. And we are back in the positive. After a few shows, join us for today. We have a jam-packed show, including I'll be talking to Sports Illustrated senior writer Connor Orr. Also, we're going to get into my most fraudulent teams this NFL season, and I'll give you my best bets for this weekend. Let's go! Let's take a look at the top headlines in the sports betting world, obviously starting with last night's Thursday night football game. The Philadelphia Eagles have started their Super Bowl defense with a win, defeating the Dallas Cowboys 24-20, but of course, as us bettors, what's really important is the fact the Cowboys covered the spread. It closed as an 8.5-point spread in favor of the Eagles. The Cowboys obviously losing by just 4 means the Cowboys cover the spread, and anyone who bet the Cowboys to cover the spread walked away a winner. In terms of the total, and if you watched yesterday's show, you know that I was on the under. The under did hit somehow, some way. It seemed like 1 million points were scored in the first half. I think it was 41 points scored in the first half. I thought the under was dead. I had completely moved on with my life. And then in the second half, there was a field goal scored early, and then a lightning delay happened, and the game was delayed by an hour. I personally went to bed thinking the bet was dead. I'd find out who won between the Eagles and the Cowboys in the morning. And then a little bit later, a couple hours, I woke up, I checked my phone and saw somehow the under hit. No more points were scored after the lightning delay happened. So 47.5 was the total. Finished with 44 total points. So under bettors, including myself. That's a winner. The big player prop of the night was Javonte Williams. Jaden Blue was kind of the hyped player, the running back for the Cowboys coming into the season. He was actually inactive, and it was Javonte Williams who has taken the bulk of the carries in the backfield, including scoring 2 touchdowns. So if you bet Javonte Williams touchdown, if you bet Javonte Williams to score two touchdowns, if you play Javonte Williams in fantasy, you're a happy person waking up this morning as well. He was kind of the story of the night for the Cowboys. The other story, obviously, and this is why I didn't think my under was going to hit early on, Jalen Carter suspended before a snap was even played, kicked out of the game for spitting on Dak Prescott. That didn't help the Eagles defense, but at the end of the day, if you're an Eagles fan, all you care about is that they won, and they did that. They have started their Super Bowl defense 1-0 against the Cowboys. Big news also came out of the WNBA last night. Caitlin Clark officially out for the season. She has been battling an injury all year. She hasn't played in a while, but she officially announced last night that her 2025 WNBA season is over. That has caused her team, the Indiana Fever's odds to win the WNBA championship to fall all the way to 175-1. So bettors do not go to bet on the Fever thinking that Caitlin Clark's going to come back healthy for the playoffs. Her season is over. Now, I have a Caitlin Clark take that people aren't going to like. She might actually be a little bit overrated. I get that she was a generational talent at college. I know she had a great rookie season, but her 2025 numbers, I know she's been battling an injury, but her numbers have fallen, and really the player I feel like we should all be hyping up is Paige Beckers, who's having an even better rookie season this year than Caitlin Clark did last year. 19.1 points per game, 3.8 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 1.6 steals. Paige Beckers might actually be better than Caitlin Clark. So we'll see that moving forward. Caitlin Clark's season, though, is over. I hope that she does return healthy for next year. The Minnesota Lynx have become the team to beat in the WNBA. They enter today's action as the betting favorite to win the WNBA championship at plus 110. And like I mentioned, the Fever falling all the way down to 175-1. It looks like it's either going to be the Lynx, it's going to be the Dream, or it's going to be the New York Liberty. But yes, Caitlin Clark done for 2025. Thursday Night Football wasn't the only NFL news last night. It was reported about an hour before kickoff that 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey added to the injury report with a calf injury. Not good news for 49ers fans, not good news for anyone like myself who drafted Christian McCaffrey in the first round of your fantasy draft. Not good news for 49ers bettors. We saw the betting market react immediately. The 49ers were 2.5-point favorites against the Seahawks this Sunday in an NFC West duel. That line has moved down a point, now sits at Seahawks 49ers minus 1.5. They are still the favorites, only by 1.5 points. We don't know yet if McCaffrey is going to be playing on Sunday. He's added to the injury report. It's a calf injury we weren't aware of. It hasn't been officially announced if he's going to play or if he's not going to play. If he is announced out, I wouldn't be surprised if this line moves another point in favor of Seattle. It's kind of hovering in between whether or not he's playing and whether or not he's out, and the line is kind of doing the same. If he's announced out, I wouldn't be surprised if this turns into a pick'em between the Seahawks and the 49ers. Obviously, his odds to win the Offensive Player of the Year dropped a little bit last night after this news. His odds to win Comeback Player of the Year dropped a little bit after the news was released last night. I mean, this is a guy who had the injury bug last year. He had the calf injury, the Achilles injury. He came back for a few games, and then his knee decided to blow up. So a lot of injuries for McCaffrey in the offseason. We all thought he was healthy. We all spent a first-round pick on him in our fantasy drafts. But now might be time to look towards Brian Robinson Jr., the former Washington Commander. He's the player who the 49ers traded for during the preseason. And maybe that trade should have been a red flag for us. Maybe the 49ers knew that McCaffrey wasn't 100% healthy quite yet. So like I said, former Commander Brian Robinson Jr. is their backup. FanDuel does not have the prop odds out for rushing yards or anything running back related for the 49ers at this moment in time. They're waiting for the official news to come out about whether or not McCaffrey's going to play. But if he doesn't, you might want to go ahead and jump on those Brian Robinson Jr. prop bets for Sunday's game against Seattle. Wrapping up today's news with some college football. I've talked earlier this week about the Heisman odds, but if you don't care about college football, if you're more of an NFL fan, these odds might be a little bit more interesting for you. It is the odds for which player will be the number one overall pick in next year's NFL draft. This is going to be especially interesting for those of you who are unfortunately fans of teams that stink this year, like the Saints. Damn, that sucks. Garrett Nussmeier, the quarterback for LSU, is not only the Heisman favorite, he's also the favorite to be the number one overall pick this year at plus 300. Arch Manning, not only did his odds drop on the Heisman odds, his odds have also dropped to be the number one overall pick. He's fallen to plus 850, but don't forget that also might have to do with the reports that came out before the season started that he's going to come back to Texas next year. Obviously, to be the number one pick in next year's draft, you have to actually be in the draft, obviously. What's the most interesting to me, though, is that the top names on this odds list to be the number one overall pick are all quarterbacks, but there are some bad teams who don't necessarily need a quarterback, like the Giants off the top of my head. They might already have their guy with Jackson Dart. I know the Saints drafted Tyler Schaff, I still don't know how to pronounce his last name, in the second round last year. So there could be a team that needs a non-quarterback at first overall, and the top name on the list who's not a quarterback is Ruben Bain Jr. He is the edge rusher for Miami. He had 6 tackles, half a sack, and an interception for the Hurricanes in their big win against Notre Dame this past weekend. He's coming in at 25-1 to be the number one overall pick. So if you're looking to bet this market, I would just stay away from quarterbacks. I'd take some long shot bets on some non-quarterbacks. Bain Jr., like I said, is the top option and is at 25-1. And there are some teams out there who might pick number one overall who aren't going to take a quarterback in the draft. And it's certainly not unheard of for an edge rusher to be taken first overall instead. So there you have it. Those are the top headlines for today's sports betting news. It is time to talk about the most fraudulent teams in the NFL before Sunday's action begins. If you haven't followed me the past couple of years, you probably don't know this, but I am the king of pointing out fraudulent NFL teams. When everyone is high on a team, I know when they're fraudulent. I pointed out the Eagles a couple of years ago when they were like 11-1 through 12 weeks and lost 5 straight games and then lost in the first round of the Buccaneers. I've done it previously with the Steelers a few years ago when they were undefeated up until Thanksgiving. I know how to find a fraudulent team. So before we fully get into week 1 action, I'm going to rank to you the top 5 most fraudulent teams heading into the 2025 NFL season. Number 5. This one's going to be a little bit controversial, and they're at number 5 for a reason, but I am going to say the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I know it's hard to call a team fraudulent when they've been to the Super Bowl 3 straight years. They've won the AFC West 9 straight years. They've been in the AFC Championship 7 straight years, I think. But still, I think they're being a tad bit overrated heading into the season. Last year, I was on them last year. They kept winning games that didn't mathematically makes sense. They went 15-2, and they had an average scoring margin of plus 2.7. I actually don't know how that's mathematically possible. They won games in different ways every single week. Patrick Mahomes had one of his worst statistical seasons of his career, only 6.8 yards per throw, 245.5 yards per game. Their metrics overall were average at best. If you look at net yards per play, which is my favorite stat, it's just the yards gained per play on offense. You subtract the yards given up per play on defense. 22nd in the NFL in net yards per play, somehow still squeaked out a 15-2 record. I think the Chiefs regress at least a little bit in 2025. Number 4 most fraudulent team in the NFL this year is the Washington Commanders, they're everyone's favorite dark horse pick this year. I know Jaden Daniels had a historic season as a rookie quarterback last year. I know they made it to the NFC Championship, but there are a few red flags that you have to consider about the Commanders this year. Number 1, they had a 4th down conversion rate of 87% last season. That is quite simply unsustainable. There is 0% chance they will convert 87% of their 4th down conversions in 2025. Also, you have to think about the amount of late game variance that went their way last year. Of course, they had the Hail Mary against the Chicago Bears. They had the late comeback against Jalen Hurts, against the Eagles when Jalen Hurts got injured. They had several of these games that went their way late because of luck and because of a little bit of variance. That's extremely hard to repeat in 2 straight seasons. And let's not forget their defense is a bottom 10 defense in the NFL. Last year, 26th in opponent yards per play, 22nd in opponent EPA per play, and they did nothing this offseason to fix that defense. And now, of course, because they had such a good year last year, they're going to be playing a much tougher schedule, 9th most difficult schedule based on opponent projected win totals. Number 3 most fraudulent team heading into the NFL this season. The team that I believe I saw someone in the media call the Denver Broncos the most complete team in the NFL. I think it was Kay Adams said that Denver Broncos are the most complete team in the NFL. I don't see how you can say that, especially when you have the Eagles who just won the Super Bowl, who are by far the most complete team. The Broncos offense is not good. 16th in EPA last year, 18th in success rate. I know that Bo Nix had a solid season as a rookie. He had a very good season as a rookie, but he still played nowhere near an elite quarterback level. He was ranked like the 60th best player in the NFL this year by that NFL Top 100. That's ridiculous. He had a QBR of 53.3, a QB rating of 93.3. He only averaged 6.7 yards per pass snap. It was a good rookie season. But let's not talk about Bo Nix like he's an elite quarterback that's going to be able to drag this Broncos team to the playoffs. You also have to consider the amount of bad quarterbacks their defense played last year. They played Aiden O'Connell. They played Spencer Rattler. They played an injured Kirk Cousins. They played Justin Fields, Anthony Richardson, Jameis Winston, Desmond Ridder, Carson Wentz. So their defense, although very good, a lot of their numbers were because of just how bad the quarterbacks were that they were facing throughout the season. And I said earlier how bad their offense is, kind of an average unit. Let's not forget their top receiver is Courtland Sutton. Now, no disrespect to Courtland Sutton, but I don't know how good an offense can be when your number 1 receiver in your team is Courtland Sutton, and they don't really have a number 2. So I am low on the Denver Broncos heading into this season. My number 2 most fraudulent team for this year. I've been very vocal about being anti-Minnesota Vikings, and it is because I am anti-JJ McCarthy. I do not understand how a quarterback who has played 0 snaps in an NFL regular season game has somehow gone from a guy that nobody likes to a guy who everyone talks about, assuming he's going to be a great quarterback. He hasn't played a regular season snap yet. When he was drafted at 10th overall in the 2024 draft, people didn't like the pick. People were making fun of the Vikings for making that pick because J.J. McCarthy had such a great team around him in Michigan. He wasn't necessarily the reason why he won that national championship. Now he's been hurt. He's played 0 snaps, and people are talking about the Vikings and about J.J. McCarthy, assuming he's going to be a great quarterback. I won't believe it until I see it. Also, I don't think they were as good as the record last year, plus 4.6 point differential. This year, they're in a tough division. They don't really have a threat at running back to help J.J. McCarthy out. I know they have Aaron Jones, but he's getting a little bit older. So I'm so far out on the Minnesota Vikings, it's not even funny. I can't believe people are picking them to potentially go to the Super Bowl with J.J. McCarthy as their quarterback. What are we doing here? folks. He's basically a rookie, and not even a good one at that. And then finally, my number one most fraudulent team heading into the 2025 NFL season, a dark horse Super Bowl pick by a lot of people in the media, the Los Angeles Rams. Now, I feel bad picking the Rams as my most fraudulent team because I know Matt Stafford is nursing a back injury. But even without the injury, he is old. He's 37 years old heading into this year. We saw some significant regression from his numbers last year. If you look at things like completion percentage over expected, EPA, he was a below average quarterback last season. If you look at net yards per play, they're in the bottom half of the NFL. This is a team that overperformed last year, and they're the beneficiaries of the 49ers having a season from hell. Their defense is young. That could be a positive. It could be a negative, though, as well. The defense is inexperienced. I'm low on the Rams. I don't even think they make the playoffs, and I'm seeing people out here in the media picking them to go to the Super Bowl. I'm out on the Rams. They are fraudulent. They will not live up to their expectations this NFL season. Those are my 5 most fraudulent teams in the NFL this year. The Chiefs, number 5. The Commanders, number 4. The Broncos, number 3. The Vikings, number 2. And the LA Rams, most fraudulent team in the NFL this year. So there you have it. You have my 5 most overrated teams this NFL season, but don't take just my word for it because a lot of people have been asking me about this. So let's reach out to an actual expert. I'm going to give Connor Orr, senior writer from SI, a call for Open Lines presented by FanDuel.
Hello? Yeah. I like it. Yeah, betting.
All right, I am giving senior writer Connor Orr a call, putting in his number, and we are going.
Hey.
Hello, Mr. Connor Orr. How are you doing? Ian McMillan here.
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us here on Making Moves with Mac. Connor, I wanted to get your opinion kind of as we get into the meat of week 1 of the NFL season. I just gave out my top 5 most overrated teams. Who do you think might be the most overrated team heading into the NFL this year?
Well, if you look at like the idea of just rating in general, a lot of this is the fact that we're just left to fester for too long, right? And we're left to our own devices to create like this vision of a team that we think is going to exist, and then we get kind of what we got on opening weekend, which is imperfect football, which is guys who aren't playing in the preseason and they don't look so good. And so to me, if you're looking at overrated in general, like the Broncos scare me just because sustaining the best defense from year to year is a really difficult proposition. And then making that more exciting, or I guess bolstering our faith is the fact that they got guys, free agents who are in their late 20s or early 30s who've also had injury issues. And so all of a sudden, when you look into the kimono a little bit, it just looks a little less appetizing for me. I don't know. And then you have Bo Nix, who is great, but also a regression candidate. And I would loop the Commanders in same exact way, where this is a team that now is playing a full primetime slate. They're going to have the ringer on. They're going to have the target on their back. Everyone's prepared all offseason to stop No Huddle and to stop Jaden Daniels. And you have a team that, let's not forget, like beat the Giants twice last year by a combined 5 points. Yep. So I would definitely start there if you're talking about teams who are quote unquote overrated.
I love it. Those were number 4. The Commanders were number 3. The Broncos were for my most overrated teams. I had a number 1 on my list, the Rams. Are you in on the Rams or out on the Rams this year? Because I seem to be a little bit of a polarizing team.
Well, I think in so much as the Rams are going to win 10 games, because I think if they're even mediocre or hold the fort at the quarterback spot and they don't fall through the basement health-wise, they're just so well coached that I think that they're going to be able to manufacture enough victories to get them into a wild card. I don't understand the Super Bowl hype around this team and never necessarily have, but if you're going to tell me that this team is good enough to make it as a wild card and to lose a close game in the first round of the playoffs, I would say, yeah, totally.
Okay. Talk to me about your most underrated team. I talked earlier about overrated teams, but what about, is there a team that you think's flying under the radar a little bit this year?
Well, I mean, at this point, I think it's become such a popular pick, and so I'll give a less popular one, but I would be remiss not to mention the fact that, like, I think that the 49ers are going to go to the conference championship game.
Yep.
This is still a really good football team playing the softest schedule in the NFL, and you can't overlook the fact that there isn't a lot of talent on this schedule. And even if Christian McCaffrey's not healthy, I like how they fortified the back end of this running back depth chart. I think eventually they'll get there, and I think Ricky Pearsall is going to take off. But I like the Colts. I mean, This is a good offensive line. I think they're going to go down and beat the brakes off Miami in the first game of the season because there's so much health discrepancy on this roster. The Colts actually have a pretty healthy roster going in. I think this offensive line's a sleeping giant when they don't have to deal with someone like Anthony Richardson, who's not getting through his reads and his progressions and stuff like that. So, I mean, Daniel Jones looked good when everything was shaped up in his favor in that second preseason start. So, I don't know. I want to see what he can do. I actually have a little bit of faith there.
Yeah, that is a bold one, not one that I've heard a lot. I mean, Daniel Jones did have a pretty good season a couple years ago, led the Giants to a playoff win. People forget.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, he's going to be a different kind of quarterback in this offense. They're not going to ask him to move a lot, and they're not going to ask him to do what Brian Dable did, which is to kind of put himself in harm's way time and time again. And you know, they're going to keep him out of trouble. So we'll see what happens. You know.
I was hoping you were going to say for an underrated team, my Atlanta Falcons, but that's okay.
No, that's a team. I'm sorry. I'm
oh
sorry.
no.
You know, I think that's a team that genuinely scares me. And you know, my not so bold prediction, even though the Bucs are banged up a little bit at offensive line, I think they're going to go after them. I mean, the hole where Grady Jarrett is looms large. And,
oh no.
Well, I think coached on that defense. I think that there's. I mean, I don't know. I think it's going to be 70 yards at least a piece for Bucky Irvin and.
Oh, Connor, you're killing me with that. All right, one last question, and then we'll let you go here. Are you in any survivor pools by any chance?
I am advising someone who is.
If you were to advise the folks at home your survivor pick for week 1, who do you go with?
I mean, you know, okay. I'm staying away from picking against the Saints. I think the Cardinals are dicey. The Saints, I think, have the longest active first game of the season winning streak in the NFL, which is like oddly, it's so weird. The Colts have lost 11 in a row, and I think the Saints have won 4 or 5 in a row. I think they're going to beat the Cardinals. That's like my weekend bold prediction there. But I mean, you can't get any easier than Denver over Tennessee. Like there's no way that the Titans are winning that game. I mean, I hate to be so, so over the top about it, but cross country in that environment, Cam Ward playing at Mile High, the best defense in the NFL. There's just, there's no way that the Titans come out of there with a win. So I think the Broncos are up.
Yeah, and I think it's probably best to just play it safe week 1 anyway. So I certainly don't disagree with that Broncos take for this week for Survivor. All right, thank you so much, Connor. I appreciate it. You take care. Enjoy the first week.
All right, you too. Take care.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. I thought that call was going pretty good up until he decided to trash my Atlanta Falcons, and then we got to Survivor, and he said the one pick he's not going to do is the Cardinals, which is my Survivor pick for this week. So first half of the call, great though. I agreed with a lot of things that he was saying. I don't know. I'm going to have to convince Connor about my Atlanta. He's scared. He's scared of them about how bad they're going to be. That's a nightmare. That was a nightmare answer for me. But thank you to Connor Orr, senior writer with Sports Illustrated. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into Survivor and some knockout pools up next. We're going to talk some knockout and Survivor pools here in a second. But first, we have a little fun Friday halftime show. Yes.
Right. So,
yeah. And then
the NBA. So we got
layup.
You got to make a layup.
Yep.
Then you got to make a free throw.
Okay.
Then you got to make a 3-pointer. The 3-pointer is back kind of against the phone.
3-pointer.
Yeah, within a minute.
Okay. Okay.
You got a minute. You're shagging your own balls.
Okay.
If you get this,
yeah,
we're going to add a little bit of money to your...
Fantastic. I'm not going to get it, but I'm going to try.
Okay, let's hit the timer.
I have 0 athleticism in my arms. This is actually going to be embarrassing.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1.
Easy. That was easy. That was easy. Right here. Free throw.
Yep. 50 seconds. Low ceilings in the set.
Oh no. Oh, no. I'm gonna get the free throw.
Shaq, dude, you're like Shaq at the line. Shaq is 35 seconds.
Oh, that wasn't even close. I keep picking up my finger at the end.
You got 22 seconds. 22 seconds on the clock. 3-pointer. You gotta have your back against the wall in more ways than one. Oh, hold on, that's tough. That is tough. 10 seconds.
This is it. No!
Oh, good ball.
Oh, the roof got me.
10 seconds. You did so well in the bets last night. Last shot coming in.
I'm going lefty. I'm going lefty.
All right.
You know what? I'm proud of myself for getting the free throw, at least, to be honest. We're going to work on that. We're going to build on that.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm
that's
sweating.
our first ever Making Moves with Matt.
First ever halftime show. I'm going to do better next week. I promise. That was tough. Rough first halftime show. I did get the free throw, though, eventually.
Would you rather do like a Super Bowl halftime show where you're singing?
No. I would much rather try to keep doing this. Although singing might be less embarrassing, to be honest. Time to talk some knockout pool, some survivor pool. I got 5 keywords to keep in mind when you're making your survivor pick for week 1. But we're going to do a little Wheel of Fortune style of game here. So there's some blank spaces. There's some letters in here, Scotty. You're going to guess some letters. I'm going to fill them in as we go. And we're going to find out the top 5 keywords to keep in mind when making your survivor pick. Scotty, letter.
Okay, for the first word?
Yep.
W.
W just for the first word?
Yeah.
No W.
Okay.
No W.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we'll do them for every word to make it a little easier.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, that makes sense.
O.
There are some O's. We got an O here. There is an O here. There's an O. Ooh, great word. And I think there's some O's there. And an O here. What?
Let's just like it does on Wheel of Fortune. This letter.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, I think the first word. Can I wager a guess on the first word?
You can, yes.
Is it odds?
It is odds, yes. You should be using the odds to your advantage when picking your survivor pool. Use them to determine what is the highest probability for each team to win. For example, the biggest favorite this week is the Broncos over the Titans. If you look at that and find that out, maybe the Broncos could be a good survivor pick for me.
Okay. Are there any other D's?
Yes, there are some D's. Here we go. That's it. And a D there.
Attempt to solve the last tip?
Yes.
Food.
No, not food. I don't think there's any F's. No F's.
And it's not wood.
No.
Good?
It is good, yes.
What's the point there?
The point is that good teams aren't always good picks. Don't save good teams thinking they'll automatically be good picks late in the season. For example, the Eagles end the season with 3 tough games. I think it's the Bills and then the Commanders twice. So you got to use good teams against bad teams. Look at the schedule and figure out which weeks make the most sense.
Can I buy a vowel?
Yeah, for a loony. You can buy a vowel for a loony.
Okay. I.
Yes, some I. I think there's this many I's. And there.
Can I solve the second word?
You can solve the second word. Divisional. Try to avoid divisional matchups. Weird things happen when teams play against each other twice in a year. If you can avoid divisional matchups, that's why you might want to avoid the Browns and Bengals this weekend.
Okay. Can I buy another vowel for another loony?
Yes.
A.
Another loony. A.
I know that because I think I talked about this a lot. Is your persona is the contrarian?
That's correct. Don't be afraid to be a contrarian. Don't always take the biggest favorite on the board, especially if you're in a big pool with thousands of people. You want to be a little bit contrarian and hope the popular picks all lose to eliminate the majority of the entries in the pool. We got one word left. We got an O in the second spot and an E in the fourth spot.
I'm going to attempt to guess.
Okay.
Dope.
It is not. It is not. It's not dope.
Is it hope?
It is not hope, but you know what? I will give you the H.
Is it hole?
It is no. It's not hole. It's not hole. Hopefully, I'm not in a hole by the end of the year.
Home.
Home. If you can target home teams, you want to have as much of an advantage as possible. Home field advantage. Use it to your advantage when picking your Survivor picks, especially for Week 1. By the way, my pick for Week 1, even though Connor Orr does not like it, I'm going with the Cardinals to defeat the Saints is my Week 1 Survivor pool pick. There you have it. Those are my top 5 picks. Best of luck. We're getting into some picks for tonight in what has become my favorite segment, Off the Bettin' Path. We are adventuring where few bettors have ventured before. I take a look at some of the more niche sports across the world and I figure out a bet I like for them. Now, I'm going to be honest. I've done this segment 3 times. I'm 0-3. So maybe the move for tonight is to go with the opposite of what I've done. I've bet on the Netherlands women's volleyball team against Japan. That lost. I bet on Australian rugby. That lost. I bet on last night is Australian football. That lost. I'm leaving the country of Australia. Is not meant to win bets in the country of Australia. I have 3 for today's segment of Off the Bettin' Path. I'm going to start with NASCAR. Now, I know NASCAR is not super niche. I know some people who bet on NASCAR. I follow some people who bet on NASCAR. So no offense to you guys. It is niche to me, and maybe I'm making a little bit of a niche bet on a little bit of a niche sport here. It is the...
You need all the help you can get.
I know. Correct. Maybe I need to go. I'm off Australia. I'm going to return to the Americas, and nothing is more American than NASCAR. So the Enjoy Illinois 300 is this weekend's NASCAR race. I'm going to take Bubba Wallace to finish in the top 10 at -105 at FanDuel. Pretty straightforward handicap here. Bubba Wallace has finished inside the top 10 in 5 of his last 7 races. Seems like he's in pretty good form, so I like him to finish inside the top 10 at -105 for the Enjoy Illinois 300. Don't worry. The more we go in this segment, the more niche we're going to get. We're going to bet on women's college volleyball next. I've lost at international volleyball, so now I'm taking it down to the college level. It is Kansas against Purdue tonight. Kansas is the -152 favorite. I'm going to back the Jayhawks. Now, you might look at this matchup and say, hey, Ian, the Kansas is 3-3 this year. Why are you betting on a team as this big of a favorite if they're 3-3? Well, all 3 of their losses have come against top 12 nationally ranked teams, but they just beat a nationally ranked team in Georgia Tech 3-1 in their most recent game. Purdue just lost to that same Georgia Tech team 3-1. So I think Kansas, despite them being just 3-3, is a far better team than Purdue. I will take them -152 in some women's college volleyball tonight. I did not know you can bet on it. You can at FanDuel.
Are you going to watch?
I will not. I don't think. Can you watch? I don't know if it's definitely not on TV. There's probably a stream somewhere. I will probably not watch it, to be completely honest. I'll probably opt for Chiefs Chargers tonight, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, okay.
And then finally, we have what might be the most niche bet I've made so far in this segment. It is the Caribbean Premier League, which is cricket. We're betting on Caribbean cricket tonight. Yes, you can bet on this. I'm betting on the Barbados Royals at -140 to defeat the Antigua and Barbuda Falcons. So I'm going to back Barbados at -140. If you watched yesterday, you saw me read a snippet about Australian football. I just read a snippet about Caribbean cricket while doing my research for this pick, and I have to read this because this is even more bizarre than yesterday. I don't know the rules of cricket.
And mention not only odds subject to change, pronunciation.
Correct.
Okay.
I will definitely mispronounce most of the things in this paragraph. Barbados Royals batted first, and they posted a total of 165 for 6 in 20 overs. Don't know what that means. Brennan King lost 2 of his partners early on. Don't know what that means. Sounds like his partners died. I hope they didn't. But along with Rassie van der Dusen, he revived the innings. Oh, they're revived. Don't know what that means. King made 39 runs while Rassie van der Dusen scored 45 runs in 37 balls. Don't know what that means. A couple of wickets then fell in quick succession. However, Rovman Powell had their back. He smashed 50 runs in just 28 balls to help Barbados Royals get to a competitive total of 165 in their innings. Antigua and Barbuda Falcons batted first, and they posted a total of 204 for 4 and 20 overs. Amir Jangu played really well at the top of the order. He scored 56 runs and 43 balls. Jewel Andrew and Karima Gore got out without troubling the scorers much. Then took the bowlers on and smashed 61 runs off just 26 balls, hitting 4 and 5 sixes. A lot of numbers. I don't know what any of that means, but I've read enough previews to tell me that definitely the Royals are the side to back in this one. They seem like the better team. They seem like they should be bigger favorites than they are. I will back them at minus 140, but please, gamble responsibly. I don't know too much about these sports. I've done a little bit of research, as you've heard, but you're going to want to bet less on these than you bet on the NFL this weekend. But let's have some fun. I got Kansas minus 152 in women's volleyball. I got Bubba Wallace top 10 at the Enjoy Illinois 300. And I got the Barbados Royals minus 140 in the Caribbean Premier League, which is cricket. That's this week's edition, or today's edition of Off the Betting Path. It's time to get into some picks about some sports that I actually know about. Let's break down my picks for this weekend, and then I will determine how much money I want to put on each of them, starting with some tennis action. It is the US Open Women's Final on Saturday. I'm going to back my favorite women's tennis player. It is Amanda Anisimova, plus 168 underdog against Aryna Sabalenka in the US Open Final. Like I mentioned, Anisimova is my favorite women's tennis player, and more importantly than that, obviously, because that doesn't help determine the outcome of the bet, she has a 6-3 record against Sabalenka in their career. She also just beat Sabalenka at Wimbledon last month in the semifinals. So she has great career history against Sabalenka. She's also second in the US Open this year in aces. She's already recorded 35 of them, so her serve has been on fire. She's also third in break points, having won 29 of them. So she has had a great tournament. She's in great form. She already has a career 6-3 record against Sabalenka. Plus 168 underdog in the US Open Final. Seems like a good bet there. Let's move on to Sunday's NFL action. You heard me earlier in the show tell you that the Rams are the most fraudulent team in the NFL, so it's time for me to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to take the Texans as a underdog of a field goal against the Rams in Los Angeles. I've already talked about Matt Stafford. I don't have faith in him, in his health, in his back issues. I don't have faith in his form. I think he's regressed with his age. He actually had an average season at best last year when you compare him to the other NFL quarterbacks. But what's actually most interesting about this game is Nick Caley is the new offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans. He was the pass game coordinator for the Rams last year. So if there's any coach, if there's any coordinator in the NFL who knows what it takes and knows what you have to do to beat a Sean McVay coach team, it's going to be their passing coordinator from last year. That is a fun little wrinkle to keep an eye on for this week. So I'm not going to take the Texans outright, but I think them getting a field goal is a pretty fair bet at +3 against the Rams minus 110. College football on Saturday. I'm not going to leave you college football fans without a pick. If you listen to the show yesterday, myself and Pat Forty are both on this game, and the line is actually moved in our favor. So Ole Miss was a 10.5 point favorite against Kentucky. That line's moved down to 8.5. So if you haven't bet on this game yet, take a look. Ole Miss minus 8.5, minus 110 against Kentucky. Kentucky is a run-first team. They ran the ball on 56.15% of their plays last year. That was one of the top run rates in the country. Now they take on the single best run defense in all of college football. Ole Miss allowed just 2.4 yards per carry last year. That was the fewest in the country by 0.3 yards. So I don't know how Kentucky's going to move the ball. If they have to rely on the run game, if Ole Miss's run defense is as good as it was last year, I just don't think they're going to be able to produce any offense. So I will lay the points, 8.5, with Ole Miss against Kentucky. And then we're going back to the NFL for my last pick. Sunday Night Football, not only game of the week, it might be game of the season. It is the Baltimore Ravens. They're in Buffalo against the Bills. It is a rematch of last year's divisional round game. If you don't remember that game, The Bills got off to an early lead. The Ravens stormed back. They were a 2-point conversion away from tying it, and Mark Andrews dropped the 2-point conversion in the end zone to break the hearts of Ravens fans everywhere. I am backing the Ravens. I think they get their revenge on Sunday night. I will take them on the money line at -116. I think the Ravens are the most complete team in the NFL. I think they are the best team in the NFL. If you look at net yards per play last season, they averaged 1.6 net yards per play, 0.6 yards better than any other team, and they got even better in the offseason. They added DeAndre Hopkins. They drafted Malachi Starks at safety, who I think was one of the best defensive players in the draft. And people forget already, they have Jair Alexander at corner as well. This team is stacked. Bills still have a lot of questions. I know they have the MVP in Josh Allen, but they still don't really have a number one receiver. They have some issues on defense. So don't go ahead and just rush to bet the Bills just because they beat the Ravens in the playoffs last year. Things can change in a hurry. I think the Ravens are the better team, and I will take them on the money line at -116. So those are my 4 picks. I have to determine how I want to split up this $100 to bet on these 4 teams. I'm going to start with the Ravens. The Ravens is going to be my biggest bet of the week. That's how much I like them in this spot. I'm going to put 35 on the Baltimore Ravens against the Bills, which leaves me with, I'm going to put, my smallest bet is going to be on Anisimova because she's a pretty big underdog, and I'm not as confident in tennis as I am the other sports. I'll put 15 on Anisimova. That brings me to 50. Got 35 on the Ravens, 15 on Anisimova in the Women's U.S. Open final. I love the Texans. I'm going to put 30 on the Texans at +3, -110 against the Rams. I'm fading the fraudulent Rams. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. And then finally, Ole Miss. I'm a little nervous about that because the line has moved the opposite direction, so it tells me sharp bettors might be on Kentucky to cause that line to move. I still like Ole Miss, but I'm going to put $20 on Ole Miss, -108.5, -110. So there are my picks for this weekend. Thank you for joining us in today's edition of Making Moves with Mac, presented by FanDuel. Join us next week. We'll be back Monday through Friday. Best luck with all your bets this weekend. We'll talk to you Monday.